Hello and welcome to Missouri Legislative Update. In this month's show, we take a look at several hot-button issues moving through the legislative process. I'm Jonathan Lorenz reporting from the Missouri House of Representatives.
I'm Dean Morgan reporting from the Missouri Senate, and this month I'm reporting from the Senate chamber, where lawmakers are debating legislation they hope to see passed and move on to the Missouri House. Senators have given their stamp of approval to several measures as the session moves closer to the halfway point. Senate Communications correspondent Brad Bayshore highlights a bill aimed at protecting co-employees from personal lawsuits during workplace accidents.
By your vote of 33 ayes.
The Senate recently approved Senate Bill 572, sponsored by Senate Majority Floor Leader Tom Dempsey of St. Charles. The measure would restore protections for co-employees from personal lawsuits from their role in honest accidents in the workplace.
We're trying to address the problem that we have with co-employee liability. We have what's taking place in the workplace. Employees are suing other employees for workplace injuries.
Co-employees would be released from all liability for workplace injuries or death for which compensation is recoverable under the workers' compensation statutes. However, the employee would be liable if he or she engaged in an affirmative negligent act that purposefully and dangerously caused or increased the risk of injury to another person. The measure states that occupational diseases would be exclusively covered under workers' compensation laws. Also, toxic exposure would be defined as exposure to chemicals, dust, fumes, radiation, and other such substances that when ingested or inhaled would cause significant problems such as cancer, deformities, and death. Senate Minority Floor Leader Victor Callahan of Independence wanted to make sure the bill would provide certain protections for employees who were exposed to toxic substances and that their death benefits would be increased from $5,000 to $10,000.
We as a body have to deal with this issue of, are we cutting off some worker by creating such a high standard, which the business community wants an incredibly high standard of negligence in all of these cases, to where we are leaving somebody who dies of mesothelioma and their families with a $10,000 burial fee.
The legislation now moves to the House for similar consideration. The bill does contain an emergency clause, meaning it would take effect immediately upon the governor's signature if passed by both chambers. Reporting for the Missouri Senate, I'm Brad Bayshore.
The Missouri House approved legislation intended to protect Missouri employers from frivolous lawsuits. Supporters claim the legislation puts Missouri in line with federal law, while opponents claim the state is rolling back years of anti-discrimination law.
The Missouri House approved a proposal changing Missouri's employment law. The legislation changes Missouri's employment law to mirror federal regulations. Lawmakers claim the proposal will protect employers from excessive lawsuits. Supporters claim those excessive lawsuits are keeping businesses from bringing jobs to the Show Me state.
For every $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 that an employer has to spend to defend a frivolous case that has no merit, that's $30,000, $50,000, $100,000, $250,000 that's not spent, on developing new business, on building, acquiring more capital for the business.
The bill also places several protection measures in state law, protecting employees who speak out against unlawful employers. House Bill 1219 is part of the majority's big picture plan to change the state's business climate. However, opponents claim the bill does more harm than good. They claim the bill sends the wrong message to Missouri workers.
Passage of this bill says that discrimination is an acceptable business practice. It says that we value our bottom line more than the people that generate it. Weakening our discrimination laws does not make our state more business friendly, and it will not create not one more job.
Despite passionate debate,
so, Mr. Speaker, let's look at this from a different perspective.
Lawmakers approved the bill with more than 85 yes votes. The bill now heads to the Senate for consideration. Last year, a similar piece of legislation made it through the political process, but it was vetoed by Governor Nixon.
Senators approved legislation to make transferring college credits easier for students. The measure is part of the legislature's goal to see 60% of all Missouri adults obtain a college degree by the year 2025. Senate Communications correspondent Daniel Clute has more.
Senator David Pierce of Warrensburg is sponsoring legislation this session to help more Missouri citizens get a college education, including those who have college credit hours but no degree.
We have record numbers of students who show up as freshmen But if they don't come back to sophomore, junior, or senior year, what have we really accomplished? And what's happened is if they don't complete that 2 or 4 year degree, they've wasted a lot of time, they've wasted a lot of money, and we have saddled them with a tremendous amount of debt.
Senate Bill 455 addresses the trend by making it easier for college students to transfer credit hours between 2 and 4 year institutions. Under the bill, the Missouri Coordinating Board of Higher Education would create a library of 25 core classes, transferable between all colleges and universities in Missouri. Senator Pierce believes streamlining the transfer process would encourage students to finish their degree. The bill would also enact a statewide reverse transfer policy, allowing a student who transfers from a community college or 2-year school to a 4-year school to earn an associate's degree. Senator Joseph Kevaney of St. Louis believes the bill would help students throughout Missouri receive a college education.
Senate Bill 655 is an extremely important bill for the students of the state of Missouri. It provides that the core requirements for a 2- and 4-year degree be uniform between 4-year and 2-year institutions so that those credits can transfer. That allows a student to attend a junior college, and should he so discern, he apply the credits earned there at the 4-year institution.
Senator Pierce said he was motivated to file the bill after working with Complete College America, a national organization dedicated to increasing the number of people with career certificates or college degrees. Currently, around 34% of Missouri citizens have a college education. The legislature would like to see that number increase to 60% by 2025. Senate Bill 455 has been approved by the Senate and is now in the House for consideration. Reporting for the Missouri Senate, I'm Daniel Clote.
Lawmakers approved a proposal requiring a photo ID in order to vote. Supporters state the proposal makes it harder to cheat, while opponents claim it will keep people away from the ballot box.
Mr. Speaker, it is in no way.
The Missouri House approved legislation requiring a photo ID in order to vote. The proposal requires Missouri voters to show a photo ID at the ballot box in order to cast a vote. If a registered voter doesn't own a photo ID, the legislation requires the state to provide them one. Supporters claim the proposal aims to protect one of the state's most fundamental rights.
If you're willing to fill out a fraudulent voter registration, what's your intent? It's to fraudulently vote, Mr. Speaker. This bill does deal with that issue, because if someone tries to fraudulently vote with a fraudulent registration, they've now got to produce an ID.
If someone trying to vote doesn't have their photo ID, the bill allows them to cast a provisional ballot. However, opponents claim the proposal is an attempt to control the outcome of elections.
Voting right attacks is the flip side of buying a democracy. Because first you buy all the leaders that you can, and then you suppress as many voters as you possibly can, because we all know these voters are not voting correctly.
Despite claims the legislation will suppress voter turnout, the sponsor of the bill claims the facts state otherwise.
We want integrity, we want fairness, and we also have heard, oh, you're going to depress the voter turnout. Well, guess what? They looked at the state of Nebraska from 2000, 2002, 2004, 2006, no reduction in voter turnout.
Lawmakers approved the proposal with more than 100 yes votes. The bill now heads to the Senate for consideration. A similar bill made it through the legislative process in 2011, but was vetoed by the governor.
After the break, we talked to several lawmakers about the state's $500 million hole. And in the Missouri Senate, every second matters when it comes to traffic safety. That and more after the break on Missouri Legislative Update.
With your friends driving recklessly? With your friends endangering your life? I'm here to tell you that reckless driving is the #1 cause of teenage deaths. But with new and improved Slow Down, you don't have to die.
He's right. We should slow down.
In the real world, there is no spokesperson to prevent reckless driving. There's only you. Speak up.
Kim, pay attention.
Every parent knows the feeling. You look away, and your child is gone. Imagine if he or she were actually abducted. Sign up at wirelessamberalerts.org to get free Amber Alert text messages on your cell phone. If you did help an abducted child get home, just imagine what his parents would be feeling. Wireless Amber Alerts. A child is calling for help.
Welcome back. With the 2012 legislative session in full swing, lawmakers have begun working on the state's 2013 operating budget. In this next story, I met up with lawmakers from both sides of the aisle to discuss the progress being made on the state's budget.
Members of the Missouri House have begun the process of breaking down Governor Nixon's budget proposal. Nixon's budget predicts a slight increase in general revenue collections.
And with the balanced budget I present tonight,
as lawmakers dig through the budget details, they are confronted with a $500 million hurdle. Unlike previous budget cycles, lawmakers will not be able to use federal budget stabilization funds to fill the holes in the state's budget. Facing this hurdle means budget cuts, and the governor's budget cuts higher education by more than $85 million. The House Budget Chair claims a cut to higher education is a cut to Missouri's economy.
The legislature realizes that an important part of the economic engine is making sure you have an educated workforce, and continuing to eviscerate those budgets I don't think helps us out of this recession.
One lawmaker claims there is a way to avoid the budget cuts, but according to House leadership, a tax increase is off the table.
The legislature does not have the willingness to face up to the problems, for instance, and raise internet sales tax or deal with the cigarette tax, so therefore we're just going to have to continue to cut education more and more.
Part of Nixon's proposed budget is based on the passage of certain pieces of legislation. The budget plans on receiving increased revenue from raising the admission fees associated with casinos and a tax amnesty plan.
The tax amnesty bill last year, we passed it out of the House and we included it in our budget, but we passed it first. For him to assume that we're just going to pass whatever piece of legislation he puts in his proposal, I think is a bit irresponsible.
Currently, House Appropriation Committees are digging through the governor's proposal and creating their version of the state's 2013 operating budget. The budget chairman hopes to have the budget on the House floor by the legislative spring break.
Lawmakers approved a resolution sending a message to Congress to balance the country's budget. The non-binding resolution calls on Congress to draft a constitutional amendment requiring federal lawmakers to balance the federal budget every year.
Washington, please, please, please.
The Missouri House approved a resolution calling on Congress to adopt a balanced budget amendment. House Concurrent Resolution number 3 urges Congress to adopt the constitutional amendment forcing federal lawmakers to balance the country's budget every year. Supporters claim Washington needs to learn how to live within its means.
Missouri sets a great example, and I'm sure even my cohorts from the other side of the aisle realize that the balanced budget is the answer to fiscal responsibility. Without it, it suddenly becomes who's got the greatest idea on how to spend money we don't have.
Also included in the resolution is a call for a constitutional convention if Congress doesn't pass the balanced budget amendment. However, some claim the resolution was a cheap, partisan stunt.
So when your party is in, they don't matter. When my party is in, they do matter. There's hypocrisy brewing in this room.
So we're not picking on anybody. We're telling the feds, get your hands out of Missouri's pockets.
After heated debate,
If it were just all Washington, listen to us.
lawmakers approved the resolution with more than 120 yes votes. The resolution now heads to the Senate for consideration.
The Missouri House Tax Reform Committee discussed a proposal implementing Missouri's sales tax on all out-of-state internet sales. In this next story, I take a look at what supporters are calling the Main Street Fairness Act.
This is not a new tax, and this is not a tax increase.
The Missouri House Tax Reform Committee discussed a proposal aiming to level the playing field between Missouri small businesses and internet companies. The legislation enters the state into a multi-state streamlined sales and use tax agreement. It would allow Missouri to collect already owed taxes on out-of-state internet sales. Currently, Missouri shoppers don't pay sales tax on out-of-state internet purchases. Supporters claim the legislation is all about putting Missouri on an equal playing field.
The streamlined use and sales tax will eliminate that competitive disadvantage and put businesses in the state of Missouri on a level playing field with those from outside of this state when it comes to who collects and remits the sales tax.
24 other states have already joined the agreement.
This is not a new tax.
Experts estimate Missouri is missing out on more than $200 million in sales tax due to not collecting on internet purchases. Supporters claim the bill has the potential to make a big difference to the state's bottom line.
25% of the revenue that comes into to the general revenue section of our budget is from sales tax. And that's going to continually get larger and larger, that hole.
However, there are opponents to the bill. Some argue the proposal increases the size of government.
It's another layer and another complication, and having been in government for my brief time already, I'm leery of letting government in another aspect of our lives.
Following the hearing, no further action was taken on the proposal.
A proposal in the Missouri Senate would ask voters to approve a shorter legislative session for the Missouri General Assembly. Senate Communications correspondent Brad Bayshore takes a closer look.
Current Missouri law dictates legislative sessions last 18 weeks by starting during the first week of January and ending in the third week of May. Senate Joint Resolution 29, sponsored by Senator John Lamping of Ladue, would, upon voter approval, require the legislative session to end in late March as opposed to mid-May, and would shorten the session by 6 weeks. If the constitutional amendment is approved, the shorter sessions would begin with the 98th General Assembly, which would start in 2015. In addition, the General Assembly's annual veto session would be moved from September to June. Senator Lamping filed the measure because he says he noticed a lot of downtime during session and wants lawmakers to be more focused during the legislative session.
This essentially frees up anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. It would be an opportunity for the Senate to take the Senate floor to the people. If you think about it in its fullest form, we might have an idea, a big idea, a little idea, but one of the things we don't do very well in my mind right now is take those ideas to all four corners of the state and present our ideas and make our case.
One of the arguments made against shortening the legislative session is that it would give senators more time to filibuster legislation. Senate Minority Floor Leader Victor Callahan of Independence expressed his concern over the proposal during floor debate.
If we have a shortened session, are you going to change the Senate rules to where you no longer allow the filibuster?
That's not in my proposal.
I know it's not in your proposal, but I guess if you have a shortened time, doesn't that reward somebody obstructing something?
After lengthy debate from both sides of the aisle, Senate Joint Resolution 29 was set aside for further debate. Reporting for the Missouri Senate, I'm Brad Bayshore.
Missouri senators take a different approach to roadway safety that's aimed at improving intersections throughout the state.
The Senate passed Senate Bill 611. The measure would require MoDOT to make the run time for yellow lights uniform throughout the state. The measure is sponsored by Senator Jim Lemke of St. Louis.
The bill prevents yellow light timing from being shorter than a nationally recognized engineering standard that MoDOT currently uses on their roads and intersections that they maintain across the state.
During debate, the bill's sponsor cited a Department of Transportation study in Texas stating a 1 second reduction in time for yellow lights resulted in a 110% increase in violations. Lengthening the time frame by 1 second reduced these red light violations by 53%. Using the national formula, collisions decreased by 43% at intersections in states that have adopted this standard. Senate Minority Floor Leader Victor Callahan of Independence asks the sponsor about the claim that some cities with red light cameras are shortening their run time of yellow lights in order to issue more tickets.
Okay, so currently there might be one 3.5 seconds long, 3.4 seconds long. And some municipalities have red light cameras, so they're shortening it to what, 1 second or something?
No, I mean, they probably shorten it by a quarter of a second.
Quarter of a second.
Or half a second.
The bill is now in the Missouri House for consideration. Final approval in that chamber would send the measure to the governor's desk for his signature.
The Missouri Senate also sent over to the House a measure that would strengthen the state's no-call list. Senate Communications correspondent Jennifer Yapel has details.
594 is just simply adding cell phones to the no-call list.
This legislation, sponsored by Senator Will Kraus of Lee Summit, not only adds cell phones to the state's do not call list, but also prohibits telemarketers from sending faxes, text messages, or digital images to any phone number on the list. Currently, only landline numbers can be placed on Missouri's do not call list. During debate, Senate Minority Floor Leader Victor Callahan of Independence asks the bill sponsor why cell phones weren't included on the no-call list earlier.
Senator, I noticed you didn't have any witnesses against this, and I think it's a good idea. I'm just curious, the AG testified on behalf. Why wasn't it included years before? Was it opposition from the cell phone? Why wasn't that included?
Senator Kraus explained that the provision was probably overlooked considering cell phones weren't as prevalent as they are today when the no-call list was originally established.
So now it's obviously becoming a little bit more of an issue, and I think this is important enough that we need to try to get it done.
And if you think you're the only one to receive calls from telemarketers, even lawmakers are prone to receive unwanted calls and texts on their cell phones.
A couple of months ago, I started noticing my cell phone started getting these pesky, things.
Senate Bill 594 passed with no opposition and is now in the House for consideration as of this taping.
Still to come on Missouri Legislative Update, we will take a look at a new proposal that could change the way Missourians are appointed to varying boards and commissions, plus find out who paid the Capitol a recent visit. Stay tuned.
I am a teenager.
I am online.
I enjoy sharing thoughts,
Music. Videos.
ideas, information.
I will not
be a victim to threats,
to stalking, to soliciting, to predators.
I will be responsible. I will be careful.
I will be honest,
I will be smarter. I will get my parents involved.
I will protect myself,
I will be safe.
I am a teenager.
and I
will not
Be bullied.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made. Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow! Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Welcome back. One of the exclusive duties of the Missouri Senate is to approve the governor's appointments to various state boards and commissions throughout the state. Senate Communications correspondent Brad Bayshore highlights a recent proposal aimed at reforming this process.
We have Senate Bill 516.
Senate Bill 516, sponsored by Senator Rob Schaaf of St. Joseph, would change certain provisions regarding how gubernatorial appointments are made. Senator Schaaf recently presented his proposal to members of the Senate Gubernatorial Committee. The committee hears testimony regarding appointees from the governor's office to serve on dozens of state boards and commissions throughout the state. Once appointees are approved by the committee, their appointments must be confirmed by the full Senate. Senator Schaaf wants current state boards and commissions to be comprised with more public representatives and advocates.
Many of the boards and commissions that we appoint people to have on there something like a public member, consumer representative, patient advocate, and I notice that these positions are usually filled with somebody from the governor's staff or somebody who's got a material interest in the subject being regulated.
A provision in the legislation would prohibit appointees from serving if they are current state employees. Senator Ryan McKenna of Crystal City says this provision would hamper the quality of future appointees.
I think when we limit ourselves of individuals that could be very capable and add a lot to whatever board or commission that they're going for, and just not allow them to serve because they happen to work in state government, I guess I have a hard time wrapping my head around why we would limit ourselves to capable people when there's often 1,000 vacancies on boards and commissions that we can't get anybody to fill anyway.
As of this taping, Senate Bill 516 is waiting for a vote by the members of the Senate Gubernatorial Appointments Committee. If approved, it could be debated on the Senate floor. Reporting for the Missouri Senate, I'm Brad Bayshore.
The University of Missouri football team visited the General Assembly to meet with lawmakers and fans following the football season. Lawmakers and fans had the opportunity to meet head coach Gary Pinkel and several members of the Mizzou football team.
With Coach Gary Pinkel.
The University of Missouri football team visited the General Assembly and was received with a standing ovation. Lawmakers had the opportunity to meet several members of the team, along with head coach Gary Pinkel and athletic director Mike Alden. The Tigers finished its final season in the Big 12 with an 8-5 record, ending the season with a win in the Independence Bowl. For one Tiger, there's a big difference between his last trip to the state capitol and the one he experienced with the SEC-bound Tigers.
I don't remember any of the plays in fourth grade. It was a long time ago. So it was cool. People are cool. We got to meet a lot of good people and just see that we got to go in the Senate and the House and all that. So it's really neat.
Following the team's appearance in both chambers, they stayed and signed autographs for fans. The Missouri Tigers will return to the gridiron on April 14th for the annual Black and Gold game. And that's our show for this month. If you have any questions regarding anything going on in the Missouri House, you can visit our website at www.house.mo.gov. I'm Jonathan Lorenz reporting for the Missouri House of Representatives.
And if you have any questions about the legislation or committees that appeared in this program, please visit www.senate.mo.gov, and there you'll find the contact information for all 34 members of the Missouri Senate, as well as a link to the Senate's newsroom website. We leave you this month with scenes from the unveiling of the bust for Buck O'Neill. I'm Dean Morgan reporting from the Missouri Senate. Thanks for watching.
It's not often that we can refer to somebody as legendary, but that adjective has found its place in front of Buck O'Neill's name time and time again. And today, as we induct him into the Hall of Famous Missourians, we do so with the intent of preserving the legend of this great man, and so that this story and his story will be shared by generations to come.
And whereas inductees of the Hall of Famous Missourians are selected by the Speaker of the Missouri House of Representatives, and the busts are created by two Missouri sculptors, William J. Williams and Sabra Tullmeyer, and John Buck O'Neill, manager in the Negro American League, managing the Kansas City Monarchs for 8 seasons, from 1948 through 1955, and winning 2 undisputed pennants in 1953 and 1955.
But it's definitely an honor. We were all disappointed when Buck wasn't elected to the Hall of Fame. But if you knew Buck, his main goal was to get as many guys in the Hall of Fame as he could, and he did a great job in that area. And today, I really believe Buck has finally made his Hall of Fame, because to me, the best recognition you can get is a recognition in your city, in your state. And I think this is Buck's Hall of Fame tonight, being inducted into the Hall of Famous Missourians.